And it's hi everybody, we're live, and this is Shelley Darling, and it's not because I'm overly affectionate. That really is her last name, guys. Say hello, Shelley.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be here on this on Jean's garden, and happy to see what
And
wants to emerge today. Yeah.
it's a week of Thanksgiving,
Mm.
and we're going to talk about some stuff. Shelley has a really broad background and stuff you guys ask me about all the time that's in my channel. You're always saying, how can I learn to dowse? Who can I work with to dowse? What is this stuff about water being the soul of the earth? And how can I find out more information? This is stuff she does. Okay. She does earth energy stuff. I found her through Tim Walter, who's been on here several times. And because Tim were you talking to him about house healing or just earth energy in general?
Really both. The book that you're going to speak to just had come out, and he had found the book, and he wanted to know more from that. So
Okay.
yeah, we kind of went all over the map.
Well, hi, Mimi Knee's in the house, and we got people coming in and going out. I mean, I'm going to tell everybody right now, the internet is a mess. I mean, right now it's for days this week, Amazon's been down. And they didn't talk about it much because they could take orders, but they couldn't do anything with the ones they got them. And there's a lot of other stuff going on. So Mercury is retrograde, or as we say in my family, Mercury's in the Gatorade sitting in the microwave. It's just going nowhere. But I'm happy to see everyone here. And we're going to start with the questions, which are really simple. Like, when did you first realize you had psychic abilities or these attachments to the
really? There's the psychic abilities, and then there's dowsing, because dowsing came out of left field. I was teaching relationship trainings and supporting people to live their dreams, and the dowsing in 2008 literally came out of nowhere, and I had no idea what dowsing was at that point. But I've always been someone who was open spiritually, and yes, and moved according to what's emerging.
Well, we have someone who's clarifying our lives for us as we speak. Mercury clears retrograde on Saturday at 4:05 p.m. Pacific time. Hang on, guys. We'll get there. So it was like you were already working with kind of energy work and people's consciousness and stuff. So was it all of a sudden, wow, there's this thing called dowsing? Or
yeah, I mean, literally, I was sick, and there was someone who was doing. We had a beautiful house in San Diego. I was sick, and we were having an evening introductory program, and I told the person who was there, listen, don't worry about me, but I'm not feeling well, so just you go ahead and do your thing. And that person went, I have my dowsing rods, and take me to your bedroom. I'm not going to do your whole house, but take me there now. And I was like, what's dowsing? What are you talking about? And she comes in with her L rods and into my bedroom, and lo and behold, has me lay in the bed, and exactly where she describes these energy lines are hitting the house, and where they were hitting exactly where I was sick at that night. And the next morning she did her curing. I woke up, I was fine, and I went, okay, what is this? Had no idea. And about a week later, as things do happen when we're in that flow, her managing director was teaching a dowsing course, and I put the dowsing rods into my hand. Within seconds, I had this surge of extraordinary joy. I would have to say it was different than anything I had ever experienced, and in a sense, I had done it before.
And yes, and these are, when she talks about L rods, these are L rods. They swing freely. Mine are copper, but they have wooden handles. I don't know if you can see that really well on what you're looking at. And you've got yours. Yes.
Here we go.
And those are L rods for those people who, when we're talking about that part. Now that's the kind of dowsing. There's actually people in the Middle Ages in pictures dowsing for crops and dowsing for water and stuff. Dowsing also can be working with a pendulum. People seem to do that. Okay. I just want the audience to stay up with, I thought it was when you did that, you know. Did you notice any unusual experiences as a child that would have led you to believe you were going to be in a more spiritual base?
Not till I started journaling when I was, late teens, 20s. And I think for me, my childhood a lot was very kept submerged. I will say, as you just asked me that question, I remember as a child being afraid to run across our stairway. And that didn't ever occur to me when I started taking people on journeys to clear their childhood homes. All of a sudden, that's when things began to connect up with me. But and other than when I started journaling, I was very, very, very aware of that I was here for love and truth, and that my incarnation was strictly about that. And I began with a guru, and that's how that whole world began to unfold. Yeah.
Good. Okay. And then, and the people who were around you, how did they start to react as your experiences grew and changed?
If we're speaking to 2008, people were really blown away because, what I began to realize was that our homes, the energy in our homes, affect our ability to think, ability to relax. I mean, I can go on and on and on. And when I started to douse my clients' homes or started to talk to people that were in the trainings, and all of a sudden people would start to go, they would go, oh, no wonder why I don't want to be in this place, or no wonder why my house feels this way, or why I don't want to go in one room. And so everything started to cohere. And for me, that was probably that deep resonance of, understanding that our homes are conscious, are conscious beings, that that can be measured and that can be really want to support us. So that was a really big shift in that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I can remember I talked to an architect because I knew little about earth energy. I am a very earthbound creature. All my friends that are out there and they live in talk to angels and float out. And I have a friend who flies a spaceship and stuff, but I don't do any of that stuff. I don't fly spaceships because I'd look bad in the uniform. But when I talked to them, I was talking to an architect. And as all architects do, he had another architect with him from Lima, Peru, who was also a shaman in Peru. And this guy went to visit this woman who said, there's something wrong with my house, but I can't figure it out. And the shaman just stood in the driveway and he said, she has much bad energy lines under her house. We need to go in and and they went in and redirected the energy lines. Don't ask me how to do that. Maybe Shelley can help you with that. I don't know how that works. But anyway, he's the one who taught me how to find energy lines and how I have a ley line tree across the road from me that I go out to visit that talks to me all the time, named Hogarth. And that was when I met Hogarth. He said, well, the elementals want you to work with them. So I work with elementals. So I work with the ground energy. And so I assume you've run into some of these characters before.
Yeah.
Because that's what he told me. They'd go in and they'd find, he told the woman she needed to move her teenage daughter, who was beginning to show signs of some real illness, out of this bedroom, because it was not a good place for people to be. And then the next time that same woman was going to build a new house, she got a new piece of land up in Minnesota, was picking out the house and stuff. He went out to look. She said, I want you to walk across it with me. Well, again, his friend was in from Lima, Peru. And they walked across the land and they said, we don't know how you pick them, but this one not only did it have bad energy line, but it had a portal that went down in the ground. And so, and these stories are not weird to you, but
No.
this is, and if we could learn how to work with these energies, we could save ourselves a lot of trouble.
Yes. In fact, what tends to happen, and this is what I tell people, is that once you experience like a full-on dowsing, working with the land, working with the home, working with the elemental nature spirits, that you will, and I have a Feng Shui background, you put that in with that, with the dowsing, then you have a shift of a whole system, and you will never, ever, even the first half hour, you will never look at a house the same way. And you will never pick that, have that pattern, because that pattern is what we're used to, because we're constantly trying to, heal our subconscious, heal our old patterns. So the houses become, a prop for that. Absolutely. Where we live, is a setup for whatever we need to work on. So understanding some of these energies and how to cure them. And, but truthfully, I haven't, only one person in 20 years have I told not, to move from a house. Like, you just need to, you actually want to cure it, because you want to, you want to integrate what that attractor field was, you're experiencing. And I'm laughing because I'm thinking about the house I'm in right now. It's like, oh, but it gets less and less,
Yeah. And did you seek training when you said shortly after you found out about dowsing, you went and sought training?
Yep. Yeah. So I'll be totally straight out. It was Marie Diamond that came to my house. Many of you might know her. She's known as a Feng Shui master and a dowsing master as well. And I actually taught for her for 2 years after I learned. And then there were certain things that it became very clear that I needed to move on my own path and bring in the pieces that were coming in for me. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I'll tell you guys, when I first set up my channel, I did numbers. I had a day that was a 1 day, 2 day. I did numerology. I did crystals. I did all the things I knew. And I had to find someone to help me with Feng Shui. I knew about it because I used to be the executive director for a statewide organization of interior designers. And I had designers who worked only in Feng Shui. That's all they did. And I had a great respect for it. But this is where I keep trying to tell people we need to understand that all these disciplines some are more oriented one way or the other, but they all kind of tumble together. It's all energy.
I'll just add to that, because this is really the voice that moves me, is that we in our evolution, we're understanding whole system health. We need to understand whole systems. So as an example, Feng Shui, in my experience, and I've worked with a Feng Shui master, it doesn't take care of the earth energies. You're not dealing with geopathic stress. You're not dealing with negative Hartman, negative Carré line, or the Banker grids. And so what happens is, so I've always said, when you bring Feng Shui and dowsing together, you have a portal to heaven, because they're working with each other. And therefore you're creating, but then you absolutely need the piece of communicating with the land, how do you speak to the ancestors? How do you get the ancestors to work with you? On that, like you described, you go on that piece of land, and you got to call it, someone who from Peru. But actually, if you just can learn even just a little bit of understanding who you call and when you call them, and that they're wanting to support your home, your land, your family, then it becomes this really joyous, exuberant experience. Yeah.
And it also can be a joyous, exuberant experience for you.
Oh, yeah.
To learn how that these energies touch you, to acknowledge. Sometimes it's acknowledging them is a big step forward in understanding. I'm big in protective prayers and clearing spaces and stuff that way. And, I'm surprised. I had a lady one time who took a class, and I'd given them this thing called the Violet Flame. And she thought, oh, well, that's kind of cute. I'll read that. So it was during the middle of COVID. So she read it. And she said, all of a sudden the room felt lighter. So she went and read it all over her house. Now, this was during COVID when you didn't have a lot of people visiting you. She had one friend that she would let visit her because they'd kind of decided to do that. And her friend walked in the house the day after she'd done all this, going around the house saying them. And the woman said, "Did you change the window coverings? Have you changed the light in the room?" And she was like, she said, "I thought it was in my mind. But when I had somebody who had no idea what I'd done, I realized, well, this stuff really works." You know, so give it a shot, guys. And anyway, and Shelley has a whole storehouse of things. We're going to get to some books she's written, and they're about power and using power like this. Have you always stayed with the dowsing, or do you have other tools you bring in?
The dowsing is really the primary. I mean, I have lots of tools, and and there's for anything from prayers to crystal. There's lots and lots of tools to explore, and tools that are really revolutionizing the dowsing. So, but for me, I don't even have really have a choice. It's like the dowsing in the land became really clear that was really my gift and my forte in supporting people to feel the momentum of who they are, feel the confidence of who they are. I can't even tell you how many times I was laughing 2 nights ago because we had dowsed a school in Australia, and I got back on after a year with one of the founders, and it was just the most magnificent call. But we were just kind of laughing, about the how much that experience had shifted who he was, and he and his wife were both the founders. I mean, this is how it works. People who are couples think, "Oh yeah, we're on the same page," until you start setting up the dowsing and you start to open the house, and all of a sudden I'm listening, I'm going like, "Oh God, they're not even on the same page at all." And then, but the beauty is when you say yes to this experience, when those, whatever, the seen and unseen spirit helpers hear you, that you're saying yes, you're ready for that shift, then things start to coalesce. And that, and for me, the gift is to, I might have 20 years of experience, but if you're standing there with me, you're going to accumulate that wisdom as, all in one package. And you get to use everything that you're learning. Like, there's no holding back, at least for me. Like, I'm not like, oh, I can't tell this like that. It's really about creating what I'm kind of seeing is like a widening of your experience of who you are and the gifts that you have, and having the land and the environment to really let you know, hey, you've got the support, right?
Right. Well, one of the things, do you have mentors and teachers now, or are you setting yourself up to be the mentor and the teacher?
Oh, that's a really good question, isn't it? For me, it's all about always learning. I came back from being with Patrick McManaway, who is an incredible, he's just known as a house whisperer, but he works primarily with agricultural land. And he's not doing some of the work that I'm doing. And so we work together, and I'll always, if I run up against something, I'll call on him. So, yes, I have different mentors. I don't have one person at this point in my life that I'm, like, I really stay open to, okay, show me, what do I need to learn? How can I, and people will ask me a question and I'll say, I might not have the answer to that, but I'll find out, lead you in the right direction. So, and that's what I really believe, that, you just always want to see the people that you're gifting your gift to really be able to take that and grow with it, and have their mentors, and then come back and tell you something that you might not know, which is lovely, right?
You can't know everything. I mean, I know people want us to, and they think if we can flip the right card, we'll find out all the answers, but they're just not there. Right. And I know there's readers that I trust for certain kinds of energies and vibrations, and disciplines that I trust for certain kinds of energies and vibrations. And okay, let's see. Oh, this is a good question for you, dear. What's the difference between psychic impressions and imagination?
That's a really good question. I feel imagination is tied to curiosity. Imagination is more coming from what you're desiring, you know,
Mm-hmm.
what you're in a direct collaboration with your own consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And and I feel like if I'm getting what you're saying by psychic impressions, because no one's ever asked me that question, by the way.
Oh, really?
No. And is that there's actually a channel open between you and the living source intelligence. Call it nature's intelligence, call it, but there is a sense of I mean, some people would maybe call it guidance, but there's a source of a direct signaling of your consciousness. That to me, that's when I'm out and I'm noticing something, whether it's an eagle all of a sudden shows up at a particular moment, or yesterday I was adding in 3 chapters at the end of this book I'm writing, and all of a sudden the sun, I don't know how, I literally put the computer, I just literally was shutting the computer, and the sun hit this pane of glass and literally, spread a full on rainbow of colors in front of me. Just, so to me, those are, if I'm getting this correct.
No, that's right. Those kinds of synchronicities where you have sensory kind of, comes at me from a lot of different senses.
Right. So, I mean, I think we need our imaginations, and in some ways, when I'm opening a house, I'm inviting a larger envisioning, or setting up a resonance with really the truth of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then there's, visualizations. I'm taking you on a journey, or a shamanic journey or something, and you're using your imagination to go to a place, to get things rolling. Or, I mean, just that's how I see it. But I'm happy to expand that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think people will say, "Did you just make that up?" Or is that, and that's kind of the difference between me and imagining and what's a psychic thing. No, I know.
Right.
What I know, I feel. So,
yeah, a definite knowing.
Have there been moments when you've really doubted yourself, and how did you push through?
Of course. Yes, always. I mean, it always shows up, I mean, I think the thing about, as you deepen your relationship to spirit, to like what we just were talking about, then that doubt might show up, but its effect on your being, it doesn't carry you away. It's something that you can notice and be fascinated about. So that's the shift. You shift into a fascination, like, wow, that's still there. And I can, and yes. And then you, like for me, I was always a pushy person. I always push through stuff, but now I don't feel like that happens anymore. I feel like it's much more of about a surrendering to love, that allows for the shift to, to meet that doubt. And I think that's one of the things that I was really surprised about. In 2015, I was guided to open a consortium of dowsers, planetary healers. You didn't have to be a dowser, but you would be by the time you were done with this.
Yeah.
And you needed to know a little bit so that you understood the lingo. But in this consortium, what I remember ending the first group, after 12 weeks, and then I entered the next one and the next one, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Every single person said that their confidence just went off the roof. And that to me was a surprise. And now I understand it, because that's that sensibility of, really understanding what you were just talking about that, the psychic imprinting or the experience where you actually really begin to trust yourself in direct relationship with that source intelligence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Meeting that. So yes, of course we have doubts that come up, or sometimes, yeah, we just need a little, like, really, is this really real? And then you get the confirmation and something just, you get stronger and stronger in that.
Right. And you got to try stuff to see if it works.
That's right. Yeah.
And then, okay, how do you handle skepticism from others and yourself?
So I just show that okay, well, where that has really shown up for me is, I remember moving to California and doing a lot of dowsing in California. And there were a lot of, all of a sudden I was meeting engineers or husbands that were engineers, and I was coming in and dowsing. And I mean, that is probably the height of skepticism, right?
Right.
Scientific mind. And all I needed to do was to ask them, if you could just be here, you don't have to stay for the whole dowsing, but if you could just show up for the first half hour. And in that, having them watch the rods respond,
Mm-hmm.
They're there for the assessment, because I want them to see what I'm doing, and that, I'm not making it up. And that taught me about, I don't have any issues with skepticism anymore. In fact, I invite it, because we want to, we want to meet that, I will talk to anybody, because I just feel.
I mean, I don't, they have a right to their opinion. Then you come and try to talk to me about what you think. And just the people that get to me are the ones who have, it's my mind and I'll close it anytime I want. And that's the end of it. There's nothing you do. Closed minds, closed minds. Have your abilities gone through weak and strong phases? And did you have a feeling as to why that was going on?
Yeah, well, very specifically for me, I won't douse late afternoon, evening. I mean, I'm very clear about my energy. So each person has to be clear about their own energy. And for me, if I'm tired, I won't douse. I don't care if someone's banging down my door. Like that's really learning what is your your rhythms. So yeah, that's more how I experience it. I don't know. Do you want to be more specific or?
No, that's perfectly fine. Because I know when I completely shut down was during my pregnancies. All I could do was make that kid.
Mm-hmm.
All the other stuff went away.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think each person finds their own rhythm, and
and you find you have your own place that you plan.
And then I also like to tell people, especially if they're beginner dowsers or they're starting out. And look, the reason I do have pendulums, but for me, the type of dowsing that I'm doing, I'm working on big pieces of land or going in, and I want to measure energy. I want to find out the direction of where something's coming from when I'm, so I find for me, the L rods, work. I love, and I do like, some people laugh, I do like the sleeves on them, because the spin they're more sensitive. And, but can you douse with bent coat hangers? Absolutely. Right.
You met Hamish when he was still alive.
No, I didn't. I met Barry Brailsford, who was working with Hamish, and if anyone knows of a pair of those dowsing rods, I would do just about anything to have a pair. So no, I never met him, but came pretty close. Yeah,
because that's how I found Tim, was because he was a videographer for Hamish, and that's the book I tell people to get, Hamish's little kid book on ley lines,
the wee book of dowsing.
Yeah, the wee book of dowsing. And it's really a good book. I mean, if you want to just get a quick view of what this might be about. How do you protect your own energy? Do you have daily rituals?
So I introduce people when I begin to it's called the Sacred Golden Ray Attunement.
Mm-hmm.
I will always invite people to use that to begin with, or to add it to what they might
Mm-hmm.
already be doing, because it incorporates different energies, different frequencies, different color frequencies, and that's pretty much. But also, sorry, I almost put it on, but I use there are various tools like I just put a thing for Mars energy tools. I've been working with Marlon and Carol for probably recently and
Mm-hmm.
the past year and a half. And so there are different tools like a necklace where any of these, I love working with tensor rings,
Mm-hmm.
copper tensor rings, and they're made with the understanding of sacred geometry. They're they hold a vibratory field, like creating a positive vortex. Like I like to call them portable positive vortexes.
Mm-hmm.
You can wear a necklace that will help, and there's lots of different tools like that. But usually that, then there's one other pendant that I might wear. I like definitely wearing something if I'm going to a house where there's a lot of psychic energy moving.
Mm-hmm.
I already know about it. But usually, pretty much, as long as I set my own field before I go to that house, um, I'm pretty good. And of course, I'm calling in my light bearing ancestors. I'm calling in the masters and teachers. I'm, working with my own guides, Evolutionary Council of Light. So all of that, I really haven't had an issue. Only one time that I can think of right off the bat that I wasn't even really dowsing. I was going and doing a blessing, but there was something pretty dark that was at this one place. But yeah, for the most part.
Yeah, I brought one home. And what I used to wear is I had watermelon tourmaline.
Mhm.
I had a necklace, and I have a couple of I have a necklace that has shungite and stuff in it. And when I was out in the world reading, not sitting at, maybe I should be using it if I'm on YouTube, but I would wear those, and people would comment on it. And one lady said, "How'd you get that pink stone to glow like that?" Don't know what to tell you, but I think everyone finds their own way to protection, but it's something to consider when you're out working with this stuff. Do you think psychic abilities are innate?
Um, I would say yes, but here's the thing. Like, I never believed that I did have psychic abilities. Like, I didn't, I wasn't working with whatever, dragons or skulls, or, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I was a spiritual person, but I
Mm-hmm.
never had that feeling of like, I didn't consider myself paranormal or psychic or anything like that, or a medium either. But if you're talking about, when you get into this evolutionary consciousness, you understand that we all have these psychic abilities, and that once we relax and we find a pathway, or we open, or we start dowsing, or whatever it is, because the dowsing does help open that field, right?
Right.
Then so yes, I would have to say yes to that, but I didn't believe it even for myself when I was younger, or things
Yeah.
things kept happening to me and I couldn't understand.
That nothing will wake you up like having doors slam behind you and stuff.
Right.
How's your work changed your worldwide beliefs in life and death?
Oh, um, you're great with questions. I think only in the way that my tactile experience of life and the interweaving of dimensions,
Mm-hmm.
that has really opened up. And I would say that a level of what shifted is really a level of joy in my life,
Mm-hmm.
a level of joy that sort of any fears that are around life and death kind
Mm-hmm.
of tend to
They're gone.
they're gone, because you understand that that there are these unseen forces, unseen energies that are here to support, and all we have to do is ask. So for me, I think I wasn't like a fearful person about death, but I feel like that, understanding, like as another example, becoming very connected to the indigenous people of New Zealand, of Aotearoa, understanding some of that has really supported a relationship of being able to accept the fullness of who I am, and who anyone is, and to really aspire to being. Here's a word I really like: a transceiver.
Right.
Right, because we receive energy, we give it back, and when we start to understand what the indigenous people talked about as a hollow bone, right? What is it like? Hollow bone, or a flute, to be that conduit of light, of love. So that it's really changed my whole feeling, probably 100%, but in a really positive way.
Yeah, I can relate to that, because as a child I was terrified of death, terrified about being around dead people, wouldn't go to funerals. I used to look at my mom and say, but they're not there. Why do you? Well, you're paying service to what they did in the past. And my parents just gave up on it. They just said, we're not taking. So they'd march all the other 4 kids off, and I got to stay home by myself, which, being in a family of 5, was like such luxury. But and the more I got into it, the more I realized there is no life, there is no death. And then finally I got the chance. Last June, I got to sit in the edge of my bed, and they said, you can go today and you can just be gone and come with us and you'll be fine. Or you can stay, but you're going to have a totally different mission. That's part of where the psychic profiles comes from. And so I saw, and I could have gone, and I have had so many people tell me, why didn't you go? That the number of people who said that to me shocks me. I'm like, I don't want to. If I wanted to, I could have. So I think knowing, and one of the messages I'm supposed to get to people is that we do have a choice. We also have a choice in the quality of life we have while we're living it, but we also have a quality of death at the time we choose to leave. And that's just part of the cycle, and we've lost all touch with that to a large extent in our society. But I loved your answer. Okay, what's one of the most powerful readings you've ever done? And you can kind of mask it or talk around it, or you don't have to say names. We don't want the house number.
Oh, well, actually, in my books, a lot of these stories are there. And obviously the most powerful stories are in the for me personally, the first book, Songline of the Heart, and then the second book, which just came out, that's really case studies from a collective working.
Is that this book that I have?
Yes, it is.
Navigating Home. It's on Amazon. That's where I snatched the cover from.
Yeah.
If you.
So here's, I always go right back to one of the, probably my original travel story, and every story has its own amazing experience. But this particular one, because I had just really started dowsing, I went to Australia, and I was called to go to Mullumbimby, and it's in the first book. And I remember someone had just given me this incredible Buddha Australian crystal necklace, and I wanted to wear it because I thought, oh, it just felt so grounding. And I walk in, I get into the door, and I remember being confused, which is the front door and what door do I go in? Because I'm always looking at, what's the energy coming into the house? That's like major, right? I walk in the door, the thing comes completely apart, falls on the floor, the necklace is broken like the bead.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, what is going on here? And it turned out there were 2 negative vortexes at the front door. Well, actually, it was a side door. It wasn't really the front door. And in that case, also, one of the children had, if there's children, I'll sit down if I can, have them get to know me, see the dowsing rods. And in that case, one of the older boys spoke to a ghost that he said was chasing him, and he felt like if he didn't stop running, it was going to get him. And so it was a 2-day dowsing, and it was phenomenal. And so here's the end of that dowsing, which it was just so amazing. And if I had my little medicine bag, I would show you. But so at the very end of the dowsing, it's all done. Everyone's feeling good. The husband had what's called a key line. So sometimes the house has a message for one specific person in the house, not everybody, not every house. And I was sitting out on the porch being completely done. And I look out in the field and I see a horse. I have a thing for horses, right? I see the tail swishing. And I start to walk out to see it. And as I get closer, I realize that's not a horse at all. It was this big barrel. And I should also mention about this dowsing, there was also a friend of mine who was a medium. It was on Aboriginal land. There was fighting. And funny enough, there was, they had a little caravan. And before them, this land was owned by a couple who was alcoholics, and then before that, it was owned by Harley Davidson people with
motorcycle gang. Not just some people who ride Harley Davidsons are really nice.
No. I know that. I didn't mean to say that, but just the point of, yes, it was a motorcycle gang, and the land had attracted all this very difficult energy. That's basic. But here I was at the very end. And I walk out and I realize it's just a barrel. And then I look down the fence line and I'm going, what's that? What's that? And the psychic medium who I've been talking to, who said, hey, an Aboriginal boy came to me and he's looking for his father and he's going to leave you a gift. And something about a bone. And I'm like, okay, whatever, sure. And I'm walking down the fence line, and there is this literal horse's tail. So as if a horse, rubbed its tail up against the fence, except for one thing. It had the full tail, and it had about 4 inches of bone. And I'm thinking, and of course I took it and I went back. And so this is the end of the story. I went back and I sat down on the deck and I'm like, what the hey? And it's pulsing. And I'm like, that's impossible. I pick up my pen. I put my pen in my hand. It's not pulsing. I picked this up. It's pulsing. And I realized this was a medicine piece for someone in the family. And he was the father. It was the father, and it was an amazing story. And I realized from the experience of the dowsing that the dowsing for him was about stepping into his power, taking up more space. And so I gave him that piece, and I came back about 6 months later, and I was looking around. I didn't see it anywhere. And he starts telling me the story of what happened after the dowsing and how he started taking on, for him, stepping into his joy was surfing, getting up at 5 a.m. He was doing yoga, and all of a sudden he was taking trainings there was one other thing. He said had never told anyone he had some kind of psychic experience, and he was afraid of it. And that came out, and all of a sudden he stepped into his power, and he was now he was teaching some type of sort of emotional integration techniques from right?
Yeah.
So, and I looked around. I said, oh yeah, where's that? Do you still have that horse's tail? And he goes, yeah. He said, and he hands it back to me. He said, here, you can have it now. So I feel like that was probably one of the most powerful stories in my beginning that always kind of takes precedence if someone asks me, just like.
I have a person in the chat that's very interested in what you just talked about. I was on the phone with her last night. She's healing her house slowly. Her house is on, are you ready for this? Native American land that the tribes fought over viciously. And then the elementals got pissed because they messed up their land. So they have a real strong elemental presence there. They had mediums coming on the property that would walk 6 feet into the house and leave because there was so much energy. Anyway, they've done a big cleaning out. Her husband's working on his part, but in part right now, what they're working on is his understanding of his own power.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why and he grew up in that neighborhood as a child. And then she bought this house and then they married and then he moved in with her. And anyway, and I kept telling him yesterday, we're going to figure out a way for you to work this all out. It's going to.
Oh, it's not hard at all. I would just say, one of the things, feel free to contact me.
I will. She's here. I will make sure she knows all the ways.
Yeah, go to the website, sign up for a free consultation, and really the beauty is that the land and the elementals, it doesn't have to be a long process.
Well, the elementals that she has are fun. I mean, she's telling me what they're doing now, and they're kind of fun ones. Although I warned her, elementals are born of the earth, so they have the same duality humans have. So you got to be a little bit more careful. They're not like the lovely angels that just show up and go, whoa.
So sometimes, I'll just say this in terms of land. So what's really important is that when the land changes hands,
mm-hmm.
and yes, of course, if there's been fighting on the land and there's things that need to be done about that, but that basically the land spirits, not just elementals,
mm-hmm.
need to be really clear of what their job is now.
Right.
And because there'll be a lot of confusing energy and that's a part of, straightening that all.
It's part of us accepting our part as a human in being a part of all these energy systems.
Yeah. But that's why I like to talk about whole system health, because when you can combine these modalities, then it's really quite immediate, the shift where you start clearing the geopathic stress, you start clearing the negative vortexes, right. And all of a sudden people can access their higher consciousness that much more quickly. And that will make a really big difference when you start to feel like, the intentions are all the same. You got everybody on the same page.
Yeah. That's what they're struggling with right now.
Yeah.
What advice would you give someone trying to explore their gifts?
Ask for help. That's number one, like the level of sincerity and communicate. I don't care if you call God, source intelligence, you have or creator, or it's just the first step is like to really say, show me. Mm-hmm. And guaranteed within moments, within hours, within whatever it is, there'll be something that comes to you that will let you know that you're walking on that next stone.
Mm-hmm.
You're in alignment with spirit. You're in alignment with your soul. To me, that's number one, that you have to have that in order. And then to trust what shows up in your field, like it might be this call today. It might be something else, but yeah.
It's true. And any daily habits or exercises you recommend?
Gratitude, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Take a moment, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just connecting with your own heart and feeling like, and feeling that sense of joy for something, that you just begin mm-hmm. somewhere, right? And it can be, like for me, I wake up and, I will go get my cup of tea and I'll sit and I journal, and then I do a little bit of, I swear to God, just coloring. I let myself draw a couple of simple things, and mm-hmm. and also to create. Every morning I feel what that intention is. What's my intention for that mm-hmm. day? And something I always forget to tell people, but this is a really simple thing. I always use in the morning, I'll put a little lavender, 7 drops of lavender in my hand, and just, take that breath. I learned this really from many, many years ago from someone who was doing body work, and just inhale it, and then I just sort of put it over my body and do that 3 times. And I can feel like just, for some people it's saging in the morning, but that morning ritual, or going out and connecting with the earth and saying your prayer to, whatever the 4 directions, the 7 directions, the heart of heaven, the heart of earth, and just there's something incredibly grounding about that. So that's really, especially these days, to me, the grounding is really, really important. Like if I go out and I don't have some aspect, you can be sure I'll come back like 5 hours later, I'll be exhausted. But if I take the time to make that connection with my soul, with my spirit, and call in whoever, whatever you're needing, and get clear about, maybe your intention is just to, it's not necessarily specific about, oh, I have this job or that job. It's just simply about being open. It might be simply as being open-hearted, letting the angels, archangels know, like, hey, I'm requesting support, and the other piece that this has been probably the past 6 months, 8 months, just, inviting, like, use my hands, use my eyes, use my ears, use my voice. And here's a key piece: your mind aligned with your heart.
Right.
And then you're setting the space for being that conduit of love, of light. Yeah. I've never told anybody that.
Well, I appreciate, because we're going into what I've had a vision of, and Terry from Holding Your Space, she and I were discussing this. We are in a high heart moment. We have to speak, and if you've ever seen, there's like little chakras that go up from the heart and stuff. It's a long thing. But you don't have to make it a long thing. You just have to think, am I connected? And in my world of Tarot, the 2 of Swords, one of those swords is your heart and the other one's your mind. And when they're fighting with each other, those horses are going, those swords are going nowhere. They're not going to make any progress. You have to decide. But when you can align the 2, then the energy can just move. And you do, I know you work with the Heart Place in New York.
Oh, Heart Math?
Heart Math, yeah. You see, when I get into doing reading and stuff, I kind of get into my own space. But Heart Math has wonderful, wonderful things you can do to align your heart to your body. Because you got to think, there's 3 chakras here, and then there's 3 chakras below the heart. So if the heart's blocked up, your energy's going nowhere. It comes from the top and it stops. It comes from the bottom, the creativity and life force come. And they just sit there. And I realized that was one of my first things 12 years ago when I broke through, and I said, I'm going to break my heart out of, I weighed over 330 pounds then, and I realized I built a fort fat to protect the heart so nothing could move. That's my weird journey.
That's a big journey.
And how do you feel when you're talking to people in the community? How do you find a trustworthy psychic community or a person to work with?
That's really interesting. Number one, if I'm walking into a community meeting or something, I'm always aware of the first person that I walk into. There's something about that connection. It's proven itself over and over again. But I think it goes back to what we were saying, to really, there's a knowing, and sometimes if you don't have that sense of a knowing, you have to ask for support, like if you're, depending, the other thing that I've done a lot of somatic integration. That's what I used to teach, how to embody really who you are. And that does come into the dowsing that I'm doing. But yeah, you need to find someone who does have that sense. But I think you stay alert, that can be one of your intentions, that I'm alert. And for me, discernment was really challenging. A lot of my life, I kept attracting certain things until it hit me enough that I needed to go deeper inside myself. So I think, I don't have that question anymore, but I definitely, I mean, I think when you meet someone that's real and someone, that you
Right.
honest, like you need, we need to have truth. Like, to me, go in the direction of indigenous wisdom, because something that we all need is something, the indigenous wisdom speaks to living in harmony with yourself and the earth. You pretty much can't go wrong in that direction,
Right.
Yeah. So, but
Well,
I think you do have to be careful of people. I mean,
well, I always tell people, first of all, people say to me, "Oh, but my guides don't tell me. I can't hear them." And are you asking to hear them? A lot of times, oh no, did I have to ask to hear them? Yes. So you have to be open to hear it. But okay, this is the easiest question of the bunch. What's the biggest lesson you've learned in your psychic journey?
what's the biggest lesson? Oh boy. Is there one?
I know.
There was just one. The biggest lesson is to trust my own heart, to find a pace of life that works for me, and yeah, that's probably the biggest lesson, is to trust the things that are coming to me are coming from a place of love and wisdom, and keep putting one foot, and like you said, ask, let this day be, let me walk in a good way, let me find those, all you have to do, it's really about asking, let me find this, those people that, will support my journey for the highest good, that I'm there for their journey for the highest good. And I think that you can't go wrong. It gets tricky when it's relationships, and in emotional relationships, that's a little bit trickier territory.
Yeah, we're not talking about that.
No, right. And of course, guess what? You can always douse. If you learn how to douse, play with that.
Yes. Learn how to douse, and then you'll have it all. Anyway, this is your book, Navigating Home, Restoring Wholeness to the Earth Together. And people keep saying, well, I want to go douse with people, or I want to go, no, I want to know if I have energy lines on my land. I can guarantee you there's energy on your land. So give that one up. But this will give you some guidance. You also have worked with Loving Waters, and that follows the theory. This was stuff that was in the earlier years about how, following Dr. Emoto's studies of how water is where spirit lives. Water is a part of all of us. So you've kind of touched all the elementals. And go to her Facebook page. She had an absolutely fascinating show, and it's a couple of years old, but I had not seen it before, about how they found near Masada these old seeds for date trees, and they eventually raised seeds, and they are now producing Judean dates, which the Romans thought they'd killed all of them. They killed them all. This was considered an extinct plant, and it's showing up now at this time. And one of this particular plant has a lot of psychoneurotic, neuro things. It helps with depression. It helps with a lot of other things. And that's what it was known for in the old world too. It's been written about from over 4,000 years ago. It was in literature. And I just found it fascinating. I went to your site this morning and I went, oh, I wonder what this is about. And it was, to me, that's absolutely fascinating. That's really history you can use. Resurrecting ancient plants, resurrecting ancient energies, resurrecting.
So the first book is called Songline of the Heart, Resurrecting Your Heart, Home, and Habitat.
Yeah, if you go to her website, you'll find all of these books, and they're lots of fun. And I could talk to you forever, but we're at 59 minutes, and so we're going to be out of here in an hour, like I said. So thank you so much, Shelley.
Thank you so much, everyone who's listening. And Nancy, it's been amazing and really delightful in the questions that you asked. And please know, anyone who's watching this, you can just go to the website and you can contact me, and I'd be happy to set time, for just if something's moving in your questions that you have. Yeah. Or about your specific home, for sure.
And you've got thank yous in the chat. So
thank you, everyone. It's been a joy. Really fun. Thank you. Bye for now.